Alright, today on the shooting table, we're going to do a quick, easy video explaining the difference between the two most popular handgun style mechanisms out there right now. We have striker fired and we have hammer fired, double action, single action. And of course there is a few other ones out there, but these are the most common as of right now. Now of course I do gear my videos more towards new shooters and helping them learn, and to keep them safe, and and without ridicule from people online that if see if somebody asks a question and they everybody kind of hounds into them like they're automatically supposed to know this stuff. And yeah, the information's out there. There's plenty of videos. There's plenty of the literature that they should read. But I'm here to make a video to kind of show you, help anybody out that's has any questions about the mechanism. Maybe you're looking for your first handgun and you're kind of deciding what do you want to go with. These two are the most popular that you're going to see in stores, besides the 1911, which is still a hammer-fired gun, and we can go over that right now. So we'll start with the striker firing mechanism here. This is a Walther PPQ striker-fired gun, and also it's the same mechanism as your Glock, your Springfields, your M&Ps, Smith & Wesson. I mean, so many companies now are offering striker-fired guns because of the simplicity of them. Minimal parts in a lot of them, and they're just becoming. I mean, you'll never phase out hammer-fired guns, but striker fires are definitely taking the run at it, and they have been for many years. Back in the day, I mean, H&K really invented the first striker-fired gun that didn't go off too well. Then Glock came along and, in my opinion, made the first striker-fired gun that actually lasted. And another, my opinion, every gun, striker-fired gun out there right now is modeled from the Glock. I mean, your trigger, that's a Glock trigger. But there are people improving on the design, and the Walther being one of them, in my opinion. So, when we look at a striker-fired weapon, we are going to show both of these guns are clear. Of course, you want to clear all guns before cleaning them, looking at them, whatever you're doing. So with striker-fired guns, these work. You know what? We'll start with a hammer-fired gun. Makes it a little bit easier to show the difference off here. So we'll pick up, this is a Sig Sauer P220. It's a 45 ACP gun, but this same design is on the 226, which is 9mm. I mean, you got 229. You have a whole plethora of P series Sigs that are the same design. So and I mean your H&Ks, your HK9s, your P30s, all those are hammer fired. I mean, there's a million of them out there. Pretty much every EAAs, those are on a cheaper line. Guns like that are all hammer fired, double action, single action. So what I mean is that on a hammer action gun like this, the hammer is controlled by the trigger. So when you pull the trigger, hammer comes up, hits the firing pin that's in the slide, shoots the firing pin forward, hits the primer on the back of your round, and shoots the round out. Now on a double action, single action, let's say we're going to load a round, put our mag in, load the round, and on these, whenever you pull the slide back, you cock the hammer. So on SIGs, they have this lever right here, which is actually a decocker. So in double action, single action, when you start off, your double action pull is a long, heavy pull. It's got to bring the hammer all the way back, break, and then it hits the firing pin. So when the round now shoots, the slide will cycle, and it'll lock the hammer to the rear. And now you have your gun in single action mode, which is going to give you a nice light trigger pull compared to your standard double, which is, I mean, these are almost 7-8 pounds, and your single action is a nice crisp, you know, 3.5, 4, and typically you won't carry in single action on a SIG because of the trigger pull being so light, and there's no external thumb safety. So when you rack it around in the chamber, then you pull down on this decocking lever, and it will slowly let the hammer up. But a block comes up. It's hard to see on these, but a block will come up and not let the hammer fall forward and hit the firing pin. So that puts it in double action mode, which is now safe to carry without an external thumb safety. So this gun for me, even though I prefer to carry striker fired without a safety, I could carry this because I don't have to worry about that thumb safety. Now, a lot of new shooters out there, they might prefer a thumb safety. They get used to it. I always try to say, you know, shoot, go out, go to the range, go to an indoor, you know, or an indoor range that lets you test guns. Shoot as many as you can. See what feels good in your hand. You know, a lot of people aren't going to be comfortable right off the bat carrying a gun like this that, with a round in the chamber, all it takes is the trigger pull to go off. They want that external thumb safety there. You know, over the time, I think you learn that you don't want that. You might not prefer that. I don't like it at all. I don't want to have to flip a little safety down when, I mean, seconds can count. Your stress level's up. But a lot of experienced people out there do like them. So you know, it's up to you. These striker fired guns are safe. They have multiple safeties in them. They just don't have an actual thumb safety. So back with the SIG here. So like I said, double action, single action. You got your first pull, which will pull back, fire the first round, slide will cock, drop the hammer, and then now you're in single action mode. So when you come off the reset, you have a very short trigger pull to release it again. Of course, the slide will come back, cock the hammer again, and it'll stay back until either you decock it or you're out of ammo in your magazine and you shoot it again and it stays in double action mode. So, you know, that's the basic mechanisms of a double action, single action. Now, if you're looking at a 1911, those are single action guns. They are still hammer fired, but they rely on the hammer being cocked. The safety or the trigger is a low 3-pound trigger usually on a kind of just like this, except for it's a solid trigger. And they usually will have, well, they should always have a big thumb safety on the side. Those I can deal with because the thumb safety is huge. You almost can't miss it when you're going out, when you're drawing out to fire. You can easily click that off. Some of these new guns, the M&Ps and things with these little thumb safeties on the side, you know, you miss that once and you're done. But that's what practice is for. So that would be a 1911 style or a single action only gun, which SIG makes. It'll have a thumb safety here for you because you, in my opinion, you don't want to carry a gun with that light of a trigger just out in the open with no safety on it. So now we'll move over to your striker fired. So the way this one works is, now it depends. Now this is Glocks, M&Ps, they all work the same, but they all work differently too. So with this you have 3 internal safeties. You have a trigger safety right here. So this gun cannot be fired unless you put your finger on this tab right here coming out of the middle of the trigger. So if I tried to pull on the side right here, it won't let me fire the gun. Some of them, I believe M&Ps, have a notch or a piece of polymer back here, and the trigger's kind of cut. So unless you pull the trigger down here at the bottom, it won't allow it to go up into the frame. So if you pulled it up at the top, it wouldn't allow you to pull the trigger. So that's their version of with their safety. And guns like the SIG 320, their new striker fired gun, doesn't have a trigger safety, and since the recall, that's obviously what they're going to do, I believe, with their new recall, since they're not drop tested properly, or guns were going off if they were dropped at a certain angle. So SIG is going to do a voluntary recall on those guns, and I believe they're going to put a trigger style tab safety in. So you pull the trigger. What it does is when you cock the gun, you put a round in the chamber, it halfway cocks the firing pin in here. when you pull the trigger, you have another safety on the inside. Let me show you. Show you the safeties on striker fired guns, and most hammer fired guns have them too. Series 80, 1911s, your SIGs, they'll have what they call a firing pin block in here. So what this does, this little pin in here, the firing pin cannot come forward unless, when you pull the trigger, it's kind of hard to show, but there's a piece in here that's going to move this out of the way so the firing pin can come forward. So that's your internals. You got your striker back here in your firing pin block. So when I put it back on here, I pull the trigger, got around in the chamber, I pull the trigger back, it's pushing that firing pin block up right now. The striker is already halfway cocked, so when I break the trigger, it lets the striker fly free, hit the back of the primer, and ignite the ram. They also have a drop safety in them. Most of all striker fired guns now, so they usually have 3 safeties. You can kind of see this is a Glock mat that says we got your trigger safety, you have a firing pin safety, then you have a drop safety. Kind of shows you right here on the firing pin safety that Glock, and they do too, on your trigger bar you have a little piece of metal coming off the actual bar that pushes up on the firing pin safety. That once that depresses it, it gives a slot that the firing pin can go through. Now, drop safety kind of works the same way. It can't. Same thing. You can't. The trigger can only go back to keep it from coming forward. Same thing you see here, kind of with the trigger safety. It's cannot pull the trigger back unless the trigger safety is engaged. So those are the main differences. Now, for carry, if you're looking for a gun for carry, now myself, I only carry striker fired guns, but that's what I'm most comfortable with. It's what I've trained with the most, and it's what I feel that I am most proficient with. Well, reasons being is I like having no safety on my gun. I like Glocks, I like the PPQ. I don't really care for Springfield for my own reasons, mainly because I don't like the grip safety on the back. Not that it would ever fail, but why have it there on a striker fired gun's beyond me. A 1911 that has it, I can agree with. But I prefer to carry this because when I pull the trigger, unlike the double action, single action SIG, gun fires, come back, I got my short reset, ready to go again. And keep firing until the mag's empty or the threat stopped. On your SIG, when you pull it out, you're going to have that long, heavy double action pull. Now, granted, more than likely it's not going to hurt anything when you're firing. Your adrenaline's pumping. You got that long pull, so you're going to be fine either way as long as you practice with it. But a lot of people like that double action pull just so they don't get a little antsy. First time ever being in a defensive situation, you have to pull your pistol out. You don't know what's going to happen because you can't be put in that situation unless you're doing some really simulated training. But for my preferences, I prefer polymer striker fired guns with no external thumb safety. It's done well for me. I shoot these well. I shoot Glocks well. I shoot pretty much every striker fired gun that I've tried pretty well. The PPQ's grown on me. I believe, in my opinion, it has the best striker fired trigger on the market stock. Even as big of a Glock fan as I am, they can't touch this trigger. It's just not without modifying it. It's smooth. You pull it, and it's just there. It takes hardly no weight, which some people don't like. They want a little bit heavier of a trigger on it. They want a 5.5 pound pull. To me, I think that gives me more. If you go out and you kind of, I've noticed a lot of people that I've shot with, or I've had people shoot my guns, or I've went out and kind of trained them around a little bit. People shoot single action guns or guns in single action better because the trigger is so light that when you're on target, it stays on target. You're not wiggling off target while you're trying to pull that heavy hammer back, and that takes you off your round. So this gun is almost so light that it's almost single action. So I love it when I'm out there and it's just on it. I shoot well with it. So this has grown into my carry in the last few weeks since I've got it. We put a few hundred rounds through it. I know the gun's solid. I know it's going to do what it needs to do if the time ever comes. So yeah, that's your biggest differences between your double action and your striker fired, two main mechanisms in firearms today. We have double action only on a few guns. SIG makes some, and those are, you got double action revolvers out there. A lot of people might be interested in that, and that's basically the same thing as, they have a SIG 250 that's double action only. So what that means is I pull the trigger, slide comes back, hammer goes back with it. You're always going to have this long pull, just like this. Even when the slide cocks the hammer, it won't stay back, so you won't have a single action pull. You'll always have a long, heavy pull. It's great on revolvers, but I don't really care for the SIG 250. It's pretty much the same gun as the 320, except for they've got a double action only trigger in it. Now this also, a lot of revolvers out there are double action, single action, so you can kind of get the same points, the exact same thing, but of course a revolver isn't going to automatically put it in single action mode. So a revolver is always going to be in double action unless you cock your hammer, which a lot of people do when they're at the range because they like that short, crisp, beautiful on most Smith & Wessons, your Rugers, your Colts. They have such a sweet single action trigger that it's hard to beat. You shoot on point, especially when you're shooting just 38 special. I can't think of too much else that I can do to explain the difference. Most of your modern striker fired guns in this size, about 15 rounds in 9mm. This SIG 220 is a little different. This is an 8-round, 8+1, always carry chambered, of 45 ACP. This is 15+1, 16 rounds of 9mm. Now your Glock 19 that's in this size, pretty much the same size, it's 15 rounds also. You also have the Glock 17, which is 17 rounds. And then subtract a couple for your 40 Smith & Wessons and your 45s. That's one thing I think Glock needs to do, is get this size double stack 45 ACP, which they have something new coming out here at the end of the month that they're going to reveal, so I'm hoping it's something like that, a 19 size 45 ACP, because they're kind of lacking on that market. All they have in 45 is the Glock 21, which is a big full-size gun, and then they have the Glock 41, which is a even bigger size 45 ACP. It's a long, 6 inches. So, and they also have a Glock 36, which is single stack, but it's still as fat as a double stack. It's a little bit thinner, but it's not as small as it could be. Then you also have the Glock 30, the 30S, the 30, the SF, which is double stacked, but they're Glock 26, 27 size. So it's good carry size, but I think they should definitely go for a 19 size 45 ACP. I think they do well with it. They have a 19 size, the Glock 38, which is 45 gap, which is a worthless round. Don't buy one. At least I wouldn't recommend it, especially if you're ever going to try to sell it, because you're going to lose your ass on it. That's Glock automatic pistol. They tried to make their own round, short and fat. And in my opinion, it failed. Not too many people care for it, but there is kind of a cult following for them. Some people like them. I'm not going to say a lot, but obviously they're still selling them. So I can't think of too many differences. Get out there, go to a range. If you're a new shooter and you're looking for a gun you want to carry, go to a range that will let you test guns. Usually you can test them for a few bucks. Some places will let you test them if you just buy the ammo. They have test guns out there. Sometimes you can even buy those test guns cheaper. Put some guns in your hand. Feel them. See how it feels in your hand. So you and shoot it. If you don't shoot a gun well, or you don't think that the recoil is right for you, there's a lot of factors that come in when you're buying a gun, especially a gun to carry. You can buy either one of these two and go out to the range and have fun with it, And that's eventually what will happen once you get more comfortable in firearms. You're going to buy guns that you like, maybe because you like the look of it, or you want that gun in a caliber. I mean, a 1911 is one of the best guns out there, in my opinion. Maybe not for carry, but for at the range. You can't beat a 1911. As much of a polymer guy as I am, you can't hate on a 1911, an all steel gun. I mean, you got your CZs out there that are wonderful. I mean, the trigger on them is amazing. There's some really great guns out there right now. Too bad they're trying to do what they can to keep us from owning them when we're out there trying our best to help new people learn and to be safe, and they'll make up whatever they can to make us look bad. But I wouldn't be doing these videos if I didn't want more people to learn, and I want people to get out there and shoot and enjoy the sport, because it is fun. I mean, you love shooting. It's once you shoot, there's not too many people out there that went out and have shot a gun that felt good to them, not some big ass 500 Magnum or something that made them scared and said that they didn't like it. I personally never found anybody. But start out small. If you're new and you've never shot a gun, go out and shoot a 22. A 22 pistol. Ruger makes the SR22 or Walther. Their little P22, I believe. It's a great little pistol, and the M&P 22. It's a version of the M&P. It feels the exact same in hand. Your mechanism is a little bit different, but that would give you kind of a feel. And M&Ps are fine guns. Pretty much everything out there right now, on your $300 to $500 price range is gonna work. There's your 150 high points and your Jimenez's and those, and I would say stay away from those for carry, but a lot of people like them, at least high points. So I'm not gonna bash high point, but they're not the preferred carry gun out there, that's for sure. So yeah, get out there and try some. Shoot some 22. Shoot a few hundred rounds at 22. You'll see how much fun it is, and then step your way up to a 9mm. I think 9 is a perfect round for carry. You can't beat it. It does what it needs to do. But that's enough of my rambling. Wanted to show you these two. Show you the difference between striker and double action, single action, hammer fired guns. So thank you for watching. If you have any comments, questions, let me know. And we'll see you next week. I'll go out and probably put some rounds to these babies tomorrow, hopefully. Been itching to shoot this 220 again because it's a sweet shooter. So we'll see you next time on the shooting table.